lashing out against her devout parents and society in a suicide note on social media. "The life I would have lived isn't worth living in," she wrote, "because I'm transgender," adding she felt like a girl trapped in a boy's body, but that her family wanted me to be their perfect little straight Christian boy. On Facebook, Alcorn's mother made no mention of suicide, but wrote, "My sweet son went home to heaven this morning. He was out for an early morning walk and was hit by a truck." According to a survey from 2010, 41% of 7,000 transgender people questioned had attempted suicide. Alcorn's death now grabbing attention around the world. Actress Rose McGowan tweeting, "Fly free, baby girl." Meanwhile, Dan Savage, the founder of It Gets Better, a video movement intended to inspire lesbian, gay, bi, or trans teens facing harassment,
"There is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with being gay,"
is calling for Alcorn's parents' arrest, tweeting, hashtag Leela Alcorn's parents should be ashamed. Charges should be brought. In her note, Alcorn wrote she wanted her death to, quote, mean something, saying, "The only way I will rest in peace is if one day transgender people aren't treated the way I was." Tonight, her death, starting a conversation.
Let's have a conversation about this, John.
This is in Ohio.
I need to have a conversation. First of all, this is exactly why you can't be saying tranny on the show. But Brian the Gay Crusader had a very good point. He said, the way the press is reporting on this suicide is really beyond any journalistic integrity or even the written and somewhat unwritten rules of how you are supposed to comment on the reason why someone committed suicide, which you really, I read is Pointer, is that, are they kind of any kind of standard?
Well, no.
Who would you, what school or, well, I can ask you because you're a journalist.
Well, most of the edicts come out of Columbia.
In general, is it not incorrect to come right out and say, because his parents wouldn't let him be a her or whatever, that's why this kid committed suicide? I don't think that's good journalism.
Well, there's a couple of things here that I want to mention. One, I don't think anybody has, I don't like, whether you do it or anybody else does it, the pontification about what is good journalism and what is not good journalism, because it implies that there's some sort of rigid rules that are government edicts at some point. This leads to licensing of journalists. I disagree 100% that it's good or bad journalism. It's just the way it's done by this person. There's some belief that there are actual rules, even though the idea of journalism and the free press is defined by the Constitution, it's vague. Mm-hmm. But over the years, there's been all these rules that have evolved, usually out of Columbia, that you're supposed to do it this way or that way, and a bunch of newspapers have also adopted these, and you're supposed to do it this way or that way. This is all bogus. In the end of the day, it's going to mean that bloggers, because they don't do it a certain way, aren't journalists, and diary keepers aren't journalists. Anybody is a journalist, then they can do it any way they want. In reality, this is all an attack on freedom of speech. So there's no right way to do these things. And I've always been annoyed to an extreme about, that's bad journalism. It's always said by somebody who's never been a journalist, usually just some citizen who's out there pointing the finger, they didn't do it the right way. That's bad journalism, because I've had myself accused of it many a time, because I write opinion journalism, which is by many standards, that's bad journalism, you didn't quote anybody, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I find it extremely, it's repelling to me. I don't like this imaginary good versus bad journalism thing, because it's bogus. It's totally bogus.
And I could not agree with you more. I stand corrected. That is not what I meant by saying that.
Okay. I wasn't attacking you.
No, I know.
But the concept.
What I said was attackable. It's true. You're absolutely right. We're journalists. I'm a journalist. I feel like a journalist.
You're more of a journalist. The way I see it, you're more of a journalist than most of the reporters, because you reveal interesting stuff that is being ignored by people that don't want to put the extra research in.
Yeah,
and that's as good as it gets, as far as I'm concerned. In many ways, you're a better journalist, quote unquote, than I am because of the way you approach stories. But that doesn't mean that you're a model that everyone should copy, and if you don't do it this way, then it's no good.
Yeah, I fell into a typical trap the way it came out, but what I meant was I am very disturbed by, and this has been disturbing me ever since this first started, with this bullying, cyberbullying of gay children, transgender, whatever it is, usually around sexuality, homosexuality, or any other of the LGBTQIAAP acronym. And it's always, because he was bullied, because his parents hated him because they were crazy Christians, crazy religious freaks they wouldn't recognize. And I'm always looking for one thing in all these suicides. And here it is. I read from the...
I can guess what it is.
Don't, because it'll be so much fun when you hear how blatant it is. Carla says in the interview that she had never even heard her daughter use the name Leela before, seeing it for the first time when her suicide note was posted on Tumblr after her death, and claims that her daughter, this is the transgendered boy, had quit talking about being transgender recently, this as she was put on medication to treat depression. Journalists of the mother effing world, please go after this story. These children are being put on antidepressants and SSRIs. SRIs? SRIs.
I think it's SRIs. It's a serotonin thing.
Yeah. And if you listen to any of the advertising disclaimers about these very products, the number one disclaimer is it might give you some thoughts about committing suicide. And no one
as
ever...
we've talked about, and we've had many a clip on the show about how it also relinquishes the common sense that you might have thoughts about suicide, but you lose the common sense not to actually do it.
Exactly. And I
don't see any reason I shouldn't do it. Boom.
The only thing I haven't seen yet is the lawyers for the pharmaceuticals that show up who want, we need to have anti-bullying laws in Ohio because, the kids are killing themselves. And these lawyers always present themselves as, I'm helping the family out pro bono. But they all work for pharmaceutical companies, and that's their main client.
Yes, so SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Yeah, it is SSRI. So they can deflect any focus away from these horrible antidepressants that these kids are being put on. That is why they're committing suicide. And even Brian the Gay Crusader didn't catch this one. He had a lot about why, but when you're on some kind of drug that, as you point out, John, actually makes the urge to not kill yourself go away. This is what's killing our kids.
What's responsible for an awful lot of suicides?
Every single story.
And they tell you, they warn you. We used to, the whole year of 2011, because I was going over old clips again,
right.
Was nothing but these clips of people, and it could cause thoughts of suicide. Call your doctor.
Yeah.
By the way, call your doctor. Try calling your doctor. It's always bullshit. Call your doctor. When the doctor never answers the phone.
No. And you have to pay for a doctor phone conversation, is my experience.
When I was a kid.
Remember the doctor used to make house... Let's not do that. Let's not go down that road. That's no good.
Sound like two old farts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Newsflash.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Yeah, so...
it's another one of these no agenda things. To me, it's another classic no agenda meme. When you see one of these stories, it's just the drugs. It's drugs.
Yeah.
We don't have that many formulas to deconstruct these stories at the end of the day. Maybe there's 20. Oil pipelines, horrible drugs,
or actual drugs to sell to the people on the street. There's some of that going on. It's really, really, really so simple, yet so frustrating because it's all out now. It's just all out. Nobody cares. I see people who understand that they're being hoodwinked, but they don't have the No Agenda show is a good kind of like a little back support, you're not the only person thinking differently. That's what I mean. You're not the only crazy one.
Well, you're not the only one that sees the illogic.
Right.
And it becomes baffling that everybody's spewing this illogic and nobody's questioning it at all. Nobody ever asks, wait a minute.
Yeah.
They don't. They just blow out whatever it says on the prompter, and that's the end of it. That's bad journalism. I mean, you could say
but what's
that.
really bad is this flows over these stories into social media. Then I've just given up. I'm just looking at Facebook all the time now. It's become an obsession of habit study to me, and how people the comments they make, and how these stories get around. It's sad. It's really sad. There's no thinking, oh, rest in peace, R.I.P., my little transgendered beauty. The kid was killed by the pharmaceutical industry.
What can I say?
Nothing at all. Let me see.
I have a couple of things that go off to little segue stuff here.
All right, cool.
This happened this year, as far as I can know, or last year, and we forgot all about it.
Is this something from the Classic Clips folder?
The classic clips.
I put them in their own folder today, so I can...
Yeah, well, they came in separately. I thought it might be
Thank
easier.
you. Very helpful.
Let's try this little ditty that's come and gone. We've forgotten all about it. This is all in February of last year because we're trying to keep anyone from going to the Sochi Winter Games because we hate the Russians.
Yes, and
Putin's got to go because he's not playing ball.
No.
So here's one of my favorite ones. I said, I forgot all about this. This is very funny. And of course, nothing came of it. Latest TSA threat.
Okay.
Warning about terrorism just as the Winter Olympics are about to begin. It involves, of all things...
This was great. I remember this came out on a Saturday, maybe, just before the Sunday, and everybody was showing toothpaste blowing up in cars and all this B-roll.
Tubes of toothpaste and the Sochi Games that start on Friday. KTVU's Patty Lee is live now at SFO. She learned it has no direct flights to Russia. So, Patty, given that, how are passengers reacting?
Well, they are still afraid, and it's mostly because if explosive materials are hidden inside travel-sized tubes of toothpaste, it wouldn't take much for a determined terrorist to sneak them on board.
It's real!
Toothpaste tubes could be used to smuggle bombs onto planes. That warning came from Homeland Security today and is for airlines flying direct to Russia ahead of the Winter Olympics in Sochi.
It's the type of venue where the terrorists kind of gravitate to it.
Rick Smith is a former FBI agent and head of security firm Cannon Street. He worries about the safety of the Winter Games, which terrorists have already promised to disrupt, recently unleashing suicide bombers in other Russian cities.
They're going to require passengers to, put the liquids in the checked luggage. They've got to adjust based on the intelligence, and unfortunately, the passengers are victimized by all this stuff.
Homeland Security's warning was directed towards U.S. carriers, namely Delta Airlines, which runs a direct flight out of New York.
I believe the games will be safe, but we're in a very different setting in Sochi than we were in Salt Lake City. Sochi is a very dangerous neighborhood.
Mitt Romney today called for more information about the specific intelligence to help the TSA, airlines, and passengers prepare. But Rick Smith says it's likely on a need-to-know basis.
I'd like to think that there's more specific intelligence on what they're looking for other than just a toothpaste tube.
If someone could bring to the toothpaste, then it's scary. So yeah, I don't feel safe at all.
SFO had little to say about this terrorist warning, and only that it didn't have any information to share. So here at SFO and at airports across the world ahead of the Olympics, there's a lot of trepidation, preparation, and hoping for the best. Live at SFO, Patty Lee, KTVU, Channel 2 News.
Oreos are just as addictive as cocaine.
It's real!
Yeah.
This was a long report.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Can I play something to hook into this?
Okay.
Or just as a theme?
I have one more Sochi clip.
Oh, yeah, it's good. So as long as it's Sochi. Okay.
Yeah, this is a Sochi clip. This wasn't, if that wasn't bad enough, if that didn't deter you from going to Sochi, because everything was about, they're killing dogs, they hate gays.
They're eating gays and killing dogs. I can't remember.
Yeah, and there's the other one, which is the slamming Sochi.
And even though opening ceremonies for the Winter Games are scheduled for Friday, not everything is ready.